28A, let's run back to that. As a budget committee member, I am always asking my municipality and my school board, what are programs that you're doing that the state has mandated to which you're not getting any money? And I do know from calling your department, and I have to tell you, when I have talked to the people who deal with the data collection and things like this, I have always been treated very well, very politely.
Well, I appreciate that. I will give you that feedback, yes. Okay.
Absolutely. They couldn't always answer my questions. They go, we've never thought about data like that before. There is a list that you have for those programs that are pushed down to the local level that fail the 28A article, which says, you got to do this, but we're not paying for it.
And just to be clear, that generally those are programs that the legislature passes, and we're the administrators of the programs, right?
Administrators. So, do you ever talk to, say, the education committee and ask them, why are we doing this? Why are we as a state, either you here in the executive branch or them in the legislative branch, why are we obviating our own New Hampshire Constitution?
I have not posed that question to members of the Education Committee, and probably that would be a good question for you to pose to them.
Okay, fair enough.
I will use this opportunity to put a plug in for data. So in December, we released a new tool for folks called iPlatform for Education. If you go to the department website, just Google NHDOE, you will see iPlatform for Education. And we do sit on a vast amount of data here at the department. And so this is an attempt to use modern technology and tools to make that information easily accessible to folks. So we've got some of the data out there, and we've got plans. We're going to continue to roll in more and more data out so that all of this information that we're sitting on is accessible to anybody who wants to see what's going on, so we can be very transparent in that process. And my hope is that as we make that information kind of ubiquitously available, it creates community conversations so that people can see, like, okay, what's happening in my community, and is this a good thing or is it not a good thing? Is it, because the data is just objective information. How you use that information in terms of crafting your local education is up to the various communities. And so we're trying to give tools to communities to be able to have those conversations.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it is something that I look at all the time.
iPlatform?
No, not iPlatform, but I'm looking at data.
Okay.
And sometimes it's very hard to scrounge around. As a quick aside, my first year, in my first term, the first thing I did as a budget committee member, I did an analysis of all of the towns of my size, all 32 positions that were locally available, and ranked our town based on the average salaries, because we were always thinking, why are our taxes so high? And it turned out that for 30 of those positions, our employees were either in the first, second, or third highest paid positions, and that had never been done before.
And so so here's an example of how you can have a community conversation. So in that particular case, I'm guessing that you then took that information back and says, okay, so we're paying the highest, but that's maybe that's a decision your community made, because they're like, we want to get the best. So we're going to have the highest salaries, and we're willing to pay a premium for those. And that's a value decision that a community might make. The community might say, like, we're not looking for the best, we just want to be median in terms of our capacity. And so then you would use that to say, like, how do we become median? Right? So those are the conversations that I think you can drive through good data.
Oh, it caused quite a number of conversations, and all around the lake for at least 5 years there were reverberations, because I posted all of it on a now defunct website, Guilford Grok. And it was the first use of new media for that kind of analysis.
Right.
And it was all open source. Anybody could look at it.
Right, just good transparency creates good conversations about what do we want for our community.
And selectmen did make some changes. So my question is...
So then that's a good thing, right?
Yes,
so there
it
shows how data can be used valuably to try and do stuff. I mean, one of the examples I talk about in the education space is we have data for, in-district and out-of-district suspensions. Or, not in district, I mean in school versus out of school suspensions. And, some district may have, a high number of in-school suspensions, and somebody say, like, well, why do they have so high? Well, maybe they're not using any out-of-school suspensions. That may just be their disciplinary approach. And so without passing judgment on that, the community can decide, is this a good way to do it, or do we want to do something else? Again, I'm just trying to create transparency so that community can have that conversation.
Now, can anybody ask, and I know I have asked and gotten the blank stare.
I'll try not to stare blankly, okay.
Well, knowing your background, when I ask what is your indirect to direct ratio, both on head count and cost, you go, that's a valid question. I know this because that's my background.
Yeah.
And coming out of the manufacturing area, that's something that every plant manager knows.
Yes.
I asked my superintendent that, and they go, what is that? And
so I can tell you from at the department, it's a very easy statement. So I am familiar with that concept of direct versus indirect. We are all indirect here, right? Like if my mission is educating students, we are indirect costs trying to support the educators, the teachers in the classrooms, ultimately getting those kids to those outcomes. So I'm indirect. I am not direct labor. Direct labor is the teacher in the classroom with the student, and outside of that, everybody else is an indirect as far as I'm concerned.
Correct, but the school administration has no clue in a lot of cases when I ask that question, and I have to explain it over and over again.
I would encourage you, okay, go ahead.
That I could submit to your data folks and say, is this some kind of a study in setting it up? Because once you set something up in computers, it's always available.
Yeah.
Are people able to ask those kinds of questions? And if not, would you folks be willing to look at that kind of stuff and set that up on a permanent basis?
So first of all, it is set up on a permanent basis today in terms of dollars spent. So I think if you go look at the DOE 25, you will see a direct and indirect. There's different categories of staffing in there.
Okay.
So that it is possible to kind of extract that data. Some of the early data that we've already put out onto the iPlatform gives us ratios of administration versus teaching and stuff like that. So we're beginning to create more transparency around that. I think that you'll see some more of that coming along, but absolutely, I think it's important that not only we have transparency into that, but make it available to folks. So
good, because that's the kind of question that I've been asking. I try to ask questions.
Pull your DOE 25, and I think you'll be satisfied.
DOE 25.
It's a report from the department.
Correct.
Well, it's not a department report. It is the financial report from the school district.
And then would you be able to provide, like I'm not putting this correctly, similar type of towns together in an aggregate, and to be able to do that comparison vis-a-vis direct versus indirect, to get comparisons and ratios? Because I've looked at your suggested ratios and I look at my town's ratios and going, now I know why my budget is so high.
So what I would tell you is, so if you go out to iPlatform, I've already built some of those ratios for you, and I've built the capacity for you to do comparisons. You can see your district versus the state averages. You can see your district compared to another district. So all of those tools are built into this platform. Have you?
I have not. And
you should absolutely do that.
I have heard of it.
I mean, and getting a little bit overly wonky, what I will tell you in addition is you can juxtapose different types of data. Like I want to see this versus this, and I will draw a regression for you so you can see if there's a trend going in a certain direction or not. So try to create modern tools for data so that you can have, again, transparency and start community conversations.
This is a great thing because one of the big deals, as you well know, here in New Hampshire is that we're seeing enrollments plunge. Ours has gone down significantly over the last 10 years. And while the teacher ratios have also gone down, they haven't gone down quite as fast, and the administration ratio has remained the same. So it's something that I know that comes up in the papers, comes up on TV and radio, that people are saying, if we don't have this many students anymore, why are our costs going up? So it sounds like this iPlatform is a place to go.
I think that it will provide a lot of valuable information, and we'll continue to put more and more information out there. I don't think we have the finance stuff loaded yet, but we have a lot of information. So
yeah, head counts and finances, that's going to be a big help.
And performance and all kinds of measures on schools.
And any forward-looking school board should be all over this.
So I can tell you that the information was actually recently used in terms of community conversations. I like to describe there are two districts in the state that, one, and they have superintendents who are related to one another. and one is a affluent community and one is a less affluent community. And so if I look at just my achievement results, the affluent community outperforms the non-affluent community. But achievement is only one measure of what's going on in a community. So I also have growth in terms of student growth, like, because if you're growing kids, and if you look at the student growth, what you'll find is the non-affluent community outgrew the affluent community. And so they have a story to tell. They're like, okay, so I'm not getting the results we want, but we're growing the kids. So what's working, what's not working? Again, those community conversations I think are important to have.
And I think in today's political environment, I think that's a story that's being undertold, because we always hear about the money. We're not hearing about the results.
Wasn't that the whole, you deploy dollars in the system in order to get a result. That's the whole point. We're trying to get someplace.
And that
Croc TV.